Yo. Welcome into another episode of the ChrisBeCappinn Show, man. Today is February the 2nd. This show is for February the 3rd. I mentioned in the video earlier today. I also mentioned it yesterday that I will not be going live this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. So I will be making overnight videos as we get lines for tomorrow. I'll start handicapping some of these games and just kind of let you guys know what I'm looking at. Now, the NBA has been very volatile, I guess is the word you could use. You insert the adjective you want to use to describe the NBA, but with the injury reports, honestly couldn't talk anybody off waiting to place their bets. I mean, not that I already don't think it's a good idea, but placing their bets right before the game, just sharing some insights, some handicapping, how I'm kind of looking at the games for tomorrow. So there will be a video every single night. I'm gonna try my best to do a video every single night for just kind of how I'm looking at the games for tomorrow. So let's jump into it. We'll still run through Jackson, still do a quick recap as I always do. And today it was 4 things on the list. They went 4 and 2 if you played them. I ended up only playing 2 though. So we got Chicago team total under. They hit 19 threes, man. 19 threes that the Chicago Bulls hit for the 10th time this season against the Detroit Pistons. Just when we thought Detroit was playing a little bit of 3-point defense, they said, nope, we're not. Just kidding. I think the Bulls finished with 119, so that was a loser. Porzingis up and over his first quarter points at 5.5 was a winner. And right now I'm currently sweating out a Luke Kennard up and over 17.5 points and assists. Currently sitting, just ain't shooting the basketball right now, just not shooting the ball. 5 points and 7 assists. So we got the whole fourth quarter. I need Luke Kennard to get a couple baskets in the fourth quarter so I can have a positive day in the NBA betting today. So we'll see what happens there. Moving over to Jackson, your AI sports betting buddy / tool. There is a link in the description if you are interested in checking out Jackson. You can save yourself 50% off handicapping sports, all sports, NBA sides, totals, you name it. It's all pretty much there. Check Jackson out, man, if you guys are interested. So first game up for tomorrow, well, one of the first games up is the Atlanta Hawks and the Detroit Pistons. We got the Detroit Pistons laying 3.5 points, and that was my prompt in this game. Do we lay the 3.5, or do we think the Hawks can cover? The Hawks have been covering even with them being down a couple bodies. So Jackson makes me a nice little chart, as it always does, for some key stats and analysis. It tells me that Detroit is 24 and 24 straight up, while the Hawks are 27 and 24 straight up. The ATS numbers, the Hawks being 21 and 28, Detroit being 24, 23 and 1. Points scored per game, the points allowed per game, and the recent form of both teams. So it says why the Pistons minus 3.5 is a strong bet. And I'll give my thoughts on the game right after I break down what Jackson says. So recent form, the Pistons are coming off a 127 to 119 win over the Chicago Bulls, where they shot an impressive 54.5% from the field. Cade Cunningham led the way with the double-double, 22 and 15 assists, while Jalen Duren added 23 and 13 boards. The Hawks, on the other hand, are in a free fall, losing 8 straight games. During the stretch, they've allowed 117.6 points per game while scoring just 107 points per game. Head-to-head matchup, the Pistons have already beaten the Hawks twice this season, winning 121 to 122 at home and 114 to 104 on the road. In those games, Detroit shot 50% from the field, 37% from the three-point line, while Cade Cunningham averaged 25 and 9 assists against Atlanta. Injury impact, the Hawks will be missing Clint Capella, Jalen Johnson, Bojan Bogdanovic. These absences significantly weaken their rebounding and scoring depth. The Pistons are without Jaden Ivey and I think it's Tolu Smith, but their core players like Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren are healthy and performing well. Rebounder edge, the Pistons rank 7th in rebounding, 51.5%, while the Hawks are without their top 2 rebounders, Clint Capella and Jalen Johnson. This gives Detroit a clear advantage on the boards. The Pistons are 3-1 against the spread in their last 5 meetings against the Hawks. The Hawks are just 2-7 against the spread in their last 7 games and have struggled covering spreads during the losing streak. Game dynamics, the Hawks play at a fast pace, 3rd in the NBA per game, but their defense has been a liability, ranking 27th in points allowed per game at 118.8. This should allow the Pistons, who are 10th in pace, to exploit the Atlanta's defensive struggles. Cade Cunningham has been a key to Detroit's success, and his ability to control the game as a playmaker and scorer will be crucial. The Hawks' reliance on Trae Young, who's been inconsistent during their losing streak, makes them vulnerable. So recommendation, Detroit minus 3.5. Reasoning, Detroit trending upwards with 2 straight wins, while the Hawks are in disarray with an 8-game losing streak and significant injuries. Detroit's strong head-to-head performance, rebounding edge, and Cade Cunningham's leadership make them the best pick to cover the spread for tomorrow. So Jackson likes Atlanta tomorrow. Jackson likes Detroit tomorrow. So real quick, I talked about this earlier today because Detroit was also laying points in this game earlier today against the Chicago Bulls, and they had already not covered earlier, and you could just kind of tell from tip that they were going to beat the brakes off the Bulls, and that's what they ended up doing. They did win and cover the spread. The thing that made me a little hesitant is that the Kings were just the Detroit Pistons just 2-6 against the spread as a home favorite so far this season. You can now make that 3-6, and this does set up for a favorable matchup here. When I look at what I was looking at in the game, let me just get to my notes. What I was looking at in the game is just both teams playing against a pretty strong strength of schedule. You got Detroit last 5 games. They have played against the third strongest schedule. Defensively, they've still been really, really good. Now, the numbers for today aren't impacted here, but they are a top 10 defensive team, playing pretty fast, 7th in pace. The Hawks still playing fast, 2nd in pace. They've also played a really strong schedule, 4th most difficult schedule. And offensively, they just really, really struggle. Without Jalen Johnson, without Clint Capella, they're not getting the second chance points. They did play Atlanta really, really tough and get a cover the other day. They also played Minnesota really, really tough the other day and got a cover as well. But offensively, they are the 3rd worst offense over the last 5 games. As Jackson mentions, there's a lot of reliance on Trae Young. They are still pretty good defensively, though. 10th rated defensive team. When I looked a little deeper into it and I looked at where the Atlanta Hawks were struggling defensively, specifically, it's at the rim. And that sets up to be a problematic for the Atlanta Hawks here, because that's exactly where Detroit wants to get with the ball. They are 11th in rim frequency last 5 games, 3rd in paint frequency last 5 games. They're not shooting a ton of threes. They don't even shoot the 3 well. Actually, a bottom 5 3-point shooting team over the last 5 games are the Detroit Pistons. Now, Atlanta defense, and this is what I'm talking about. Atlanta defensively has really, really struggled guarding the rim and guarding the paint. 27th in opponent rim accuracy last 5 games. Teams are shooting 75% in the restricted area, and 25th in opponent paint accuracy last 5 games. So Detroit should be able to get a lot if you like Jalen Duren as a double prop or something. As long as he can stay out of foul trouble, he should have a lot of success here. Maybe even somebody like Tobias Harris. Cade should be able to get downhill and score the basketball as well. Dyson Daniels is a pretty good defender, but Cade he's an all-star this year. So I do think that Detroit should be able to score the basketball. With both of these teams playing pretty fast, I would probably look a little bit more towards the over, even though the total is high. It's a pretty high total. It's open 237. It's down to 235.5, 236 right now. So slight lean towards Detroit. Nothing that I'm going to play. They are on the second leg of a back-to-back, where this season they are just 2-6 straight up, and 5-2 against the spread when they're playing rested. Atlanta, this is the last game of a 3-game road trip for them. And as Jackson mentioned, they had lost 8 games in a row, but they did get a cover against the Indiana Pacers the other day. So we'll see how much Detroit plays with their food. Slight lean towards Detroit. I think that they are going to start covering some of these games, especially as short favorites. You should be able to win this game by 2 buckets, in my opinion, even with the rest disadvantage, but not anything that I have in my pocket. Next game, and I didn't go through all of them, but next game we got the Washington Wizards. They are on the road in Charlotte, right up the street from them. They're getting 4 points as a road dog here. Just double check it. Yeah, 4 points as a road dog here. This is 4.5 on a couple books, and the total has come down. This actually opened 219, is down to 217.5. And we checked the injury report out first. You got Caleb Martin already out for Charlotte. Micic is also listed as questionable for Charlotte. He did leave the game, I think, against Denver in the last one on Saturday. And Alex Sarr is also out for the Washington Wizards. I think Brogdon should be playing. He did play in the game against Minnesota the other day. And Washington should have everybody else outside of Sadiq Bey, who just hasn't been playing for a while. Charlotte, I think, should have Mark Williams back in this game. They will be without LaMelo, of course. Brandon Miller's done for the season as well. So I think both of these teams are going to struggle offensively. Now, the Wizards are coming off a win, something they don't do too often. They are 1-9 straight up in their last 10 games. They got a win against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and it was kind of like basketball guys kind of gifting them away. Now, granted, they had to play hard, but the Minnesota Timberwolves were without Anthony Edwards. He had an illness. They were also without Julius Randle, who's going to miss some time here coming up. And then Naz Reid ended up going to the locker room and not coming back in that game as well. So Wizards played hard, but that was was kind of a gift, in my opinion, from the basketball guys. Then Charlotte, they've lost 4 straight, but they do got back-to-back covers, and now they're laying points, something I want nothing to do with. The Wizards they've been laying points twice this season. They're 0-2 against the spread as a home favorite this season. They lost to the Raptors the day before Halloween. I remember being on them in that spot. They lost that game outright. And then last week, at the end of the week, I think it was Friday, we cast on the team total under, or Wednesday, whenever it was, Thursday, they lost to the Nets by 21 when they were laying points in that spot. So I can't lay points with the Hornets. I get it, it's the Wizards. I understand that. But I think the Hornets actually, the Wizards actually beat the Hornets earlier this season. I want to say they beat them. Once. Maybe they beat them twice. Let me just double check it real quick. So yeah, they played twice this season. The Wizards have won both games, 123-114 in DC, and then 113-110 in DC as well. Wizards covered both of those games with a very similar number. The Charlotte Hornets were laying points. I'm not telling you guys to take the Washington Wizards. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I can't take the Charlotte Hornets. I hope that makes sense. The Hornets are also just 1-14 straight up without LaMelo this season. So go to the total. Let's transition to the total. The Hornets have played 4 straight games that have landed on 219, which is what this total opened, or stayed lower than that. Since LaMelo went out, their offense has struggled. Their defense is really, really good, though. This is still a top 10 defensive rated team, are the Charlotte Hornets. The Washington Wizards have played 2 of their last 4 games, have actually stayed under this same total, including that game against the Minnesota Timberwolves the other day. You got a Charlotte team that is 5th worst offensive rated team and 4th best defensive rated team over the last 5 games. The Washington Wizards are the worst offensive rated team and the worst defensive rated team over the last 5 games. They also playing a bit slower. The Wizards are a team that play up and down the floor. They like to get out, run, top 5 in pace over the full season, but last 5 games, they're 12th in pace. Whereas for the full season, like I said, they're 4th. So we'll lean towards the under. If you look at what Washington likes to do, and I always talk about the profile of this team, they like to shoot a ton of threes, but they're not very efficient at all. Last 5 games and on the full season, they shoot a ton of threes. They don't make them, but they shoot a ton. Charlotte is actually 2nd best 3-point defense over the last 5 games. So I'll lean under here, 217.5. If anything, Charlotte should be able to limit Washington's offense, in my opinion. Hornets also 10-5 to the under without LaMelo Ball this season. Those games are averaging just 207 points. So I think Washington should be able to slow down Charlotte without a bunch of key scores, especially if Miches doesn't play. And I also think the Wizards are going to struggle to score because Charlotte is a defense that actually just held Denver to 107 points, held the Clippers to 112 points. Brooklyn only got to 104. And they actually held the Lakers to 112 as well. New Orleans only scored 92. So Portland only scored 102. So I do think that they can hold this Wizards team down. That would be the way that I would look in this game. Is probably a full game under 217.5. I definitely agree with the movement coming in on the under here. Washington team total is 107.5 or 106.5. I don't think that they're going to get that against Charlotte either. So that would be my recommendation here. Next game. Rockets and the Knicks. So I don't have a bet in this game. I think you got to kind of wait for the injury report, but let's jump into it. So on the Knicks side of things, OG Anunoby is listed as questionable. I honestly think, and this is just speculation, watching him reach for, I think it was his groin, in the game on Saturday against the Lakers, I don't think that he's going to play tomorrow. He is officially listed as questionable. We'll see what happens, but it feels like the Knicks don't ever rule anybody out the day before. Even when Karl-Anthony Towns missed the game because of his finger, he still was listed as questionable the next day. He ended up missing a couple games after that. So the way I'm trying to get into Tibbs' head and that coaching staff and training staff's head, not trying to get a Rockets any, leverage for preparation, I think OG Anunoby's not going to play tomorrow. That's just me speculating. You also got Josh Hart listed as questionable, even though he's been playing. For the Houston Rockets, they will be without Fred VanVleet. He's already been ruled out after what happened in the Brooklyn game on Saturday. And Alfred Sengun also has missed the last 2 games. He missed the game against Memphis, and he missed the game against Brooklyn on Saturday. He is listed as questionable. We'll see what happens with him. One of the reasons why I don't want to play this one early. So you got a Houston team or I guess you said Knicks team that does have revenge here. They did lose in Houston early this season, 109-97, as 2-point dogs. The total did go under as well. That total was at 217.5. Now we got a total that's 5 points higher. We'll see what happens with the total. But this total is 5 points higher here. So Houston, Back-to-back losses for the Rockets. This team had actually been balling, but they lost to Brooklyn at home on Saturday with no Sengun and Fred VanVleet getting hurt. Then they lose to Memphis to end their 4-game road trip. And this is the first leg of back-to-backs. They got a quick revenge spot against the Brooklyn Nets on Tuesday in Brooklyn as well. Now you look at the Knicks, 7-3 straight up, 6-4 against the number in their last 10 games. They are coming off a loss as a double-digit home favorite against the Lakers the other day. They actually were 11-point favorites, lost that game outright, I think by double digits. And this is the last of a 5-game homestand for the Knicks. So they've been at Madison Square Garden, been comfortable. The Knicks are a team that profile really, really well when they're coming off a loss. They play really good defense in this spot. This season, they're 9-5 to the under if they're coming off a loss, including 6-1 in their last 7 games have actually stayed under the total. But when you look at how these two teams play, it's a heavy pick and roll team for the Rockets, and the Knicks they do. As much as I wanted to get towards the under, the Knicks do a pretty terrible job guarding the pick and roll. Now, without Fred VanVleet, we'll see how much the offense changes for Ime Udoka and the Houston Rockets here. But you got a Rockets team that's struggling a little bit defensively. They're 19th defensive rated team last 5 games. You got a Knicks team that's number 1 in offensive rating last 5 games. I looked into the numbers with OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, and Alfred Sengun just to kind of see what happens here. The Knicks are +8, almost 8.5 points in point differential in net rating with OG on the floor versus just a 2.9, so almost a +3 without OG on the floor. As far as Fred VanVleet, Houston is a +6.4 with him on the floor and just a +2.8 with him off the floor. So just some things to kind of take into consideration. Same thing for Alfred Sengun. He's a +6 with the Rockets are a +6 with him on the floor, and just a +2 without him on the floor. So all 3 of those guys, no Fred VanVleet, of course, but without OG, potentially without Sengun, this is one that I think you definitely want to wait on the injury report for. I don't want to fade the Rockets. I will say this. I don't want to fade the Rockets. I don't want to fade the Knicks off a home loss like the way that they lost, and they got revenge here. But I don't want to fade the Rockets either. This has been one of the better ATS teams as a road dog this season. They're 7-2 against the number as a road dog. I just faded this team against the Memphis Grizzlies the other day, and they absolutely steamroll. Well, not steamroll, but they almost won the game outright. So I've been on the wrong side of fading the Rockets a couple times this season. So I know the Knicks are a good team, but I do want them to be completely healthy. They're a very top-heavy team, in my opinion. I'm not in love with the bench outside. I like the starters a lot, not in love with the bench at all. So I'll stay on the sideline for this one. Hopefully the information that I share was helpful for you with your handicapping process in this one. No play for me. All right, next game we got Sacramento and Minnesota, and then we'll get into one more after this, and that'll be it. I got to cut it short a little bit. Sacramento, Minnesota for tomorrow. This line, I think, opened at 1 in favor of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Since then, we've seen another big blockbuster trade happen for Sacramento. So Kevin Huerter is now gone. He's been traded. Zach LaVine is now on the Kings. De'Aaron Fox, of course, is on the San Antonio Spurs. And then you also got, some injury stuff with Anthony Edwards and Naz Reid, both listed as questionable as well. Naz Reid ended up leaving the last game, didn't return against the Wizards, and Anthony Edwards should return tomorrow. He's just dealing with an illness. I'm guessing he's going to play, but who knows? I think Ant likes to take the weekends off, but that's just my thought process based on some stuff I saw on social media. And he was playing against the Wizards, so he probably felt like his team should have won the game without him. Anyway, that's just my thought process. So this is the 4th meeting between these two teams. Minnesota actually won the first 2. Sacramento won the last one. And all 3 actually went up and over the total as well. It's interesting because going all the way back to last season, I said this earlier when these two teams played, that the home team always loses for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. That would lend itself to Sacramento, even though, like I said, they opened as a 1-point dog, and now they're a 4.5-point dog. And they probably won't have Zach LaVine. His wife, I think, was due to have their 3rd child here soon. Not sure if it happened already, but they probably going to be without Zach LaVine. He probably won't make his season debut with the Sacramento Kings. And even if he did, it may be more of a phase spot. So you got a Sacramento team that is not in a great spot. Even with all the trade stuff, they're also coming off back-to-back losses to Philly. Absolutely obliterated at OKC the other day. And this is the last of a 6-game road trip for them. Typically a super flat fade spot. And they haven't been playing well. They're just 2-7-1 against the spread in their last 10 games, 7-3 to the over. The defense has fallen off really, really big recently. On the Minnesota Timberwolves side, like I said, they just lost as the 13-point home favorite against the Washington Wizards a couple days ago after winning 5 straight games. This is the second of at least a 5-game homestand for them. So they've been at the crib, kind of chilling comfortably. And Minnesota had been hooping since before they played the Washington Wizards. They actually the 8th best offensive rated team last 5 games, 2nd best defensive rated team last 5 games, number 1 in efficiency differential last 5. But that was against the 3rd easiest schedule. So some things to kind of take into consideration. When I look at Sacramento, getting back to how poor they have been defensively, they're the 2nd worst defensive rated team, 19th best offense, and that's been against the 5th strongest schedule. For what it's worth, teams playing their 6th straight road game are just 1-5 straight up and against the spread this season. In the 6 instances that has happened. Also 5-0-1 to the over. So it says that these teams don't cover and they don't play a lot of defense, with 5 of their opponents, the last 5 opponents actually going up and over the team total. So that would lend itself to a Minnesota team total over. And that's the way I'll lean. I'll lean Minnesota up and over 112.5. If they win the game, I do think they'll be able to score here. I know Julius Randle is out, but I think Minnesota still should be able to score the basketball. I can't lay with Minnesota, though. That's one thing I can't do. They are 4-16 against the spread as a home favorite, including 8 straight games now after losing to Washington where they have not covered the spread. You got to go all the way back. I think it was December the 13th, I think it was, the last time that the Minnesota Timberwolves actually covered the spread. So I know Sacramento is going to be, in a very, very bad situational spot, but I can't lay with Minnesota right now, especially given the injury report. We would definitely need Anthony Edwards in, all that good stuff. Here's what I do like, though, and I'm actually going to transition over to Outlier. Let's transition over to Outlier real quick. I got a player prop here. So I'm looking at Mr. Edwards, Anthony Edwards, if he does play. This is his 3-point prop. I saw better odds than minus 152. So I got to double check the odds, but I think it's better odds than minus 150. I like Anthony Edwards over his 3-point prop tomorrow. You can see on the full season here, he's cashed in 65% of his games. But when I looked a little bit deeper, because if you look at his recent form, he hasn't really been the hitting threes. You can see that he's under. It's only up and over in his last game that he played in Utah. But before that, he had actually stayed under in 5 games. Here's why I like Anthony Edwards to bounce back. He's up and over his 3-point prop in 10 of his 15 games versus teams that allow the 10th most 3-point attempts. Now, I talked about Sacramento being one of the worst defenses in the NBA, 2nd worst defense over the last 5 games. A large part is they can't stop the 3-point shot. And that's what Anthony Edwards has been doing versus teams that are, like I said, he's up and over in 10 of his 15 games versus teams that allow the 10th most threes, right? So teams that allow a lot of threes, he actually goes up and over the number. He's hit 4, 5, and 6 threes. If we look at the head-to-head matchup against this Sacramento Kings team this season already, and he shot 14, 15, and 9 attempts. You can see the 3-point attempts right here too, 15, 14, and 9 this season. I mentioned the Sacramento Kings defense. Last 5 games, Kings are 25th in opponent 3-point accuracy, allowing teams to shoot 40% from 3. On the full season, they're also 3rd worst 3-point defense. So this is Outlier. Check it out. It's linked in the description of the video. If you sign up, you can get a 7-day free trial to check out Outlier if you're interested. I like Anthony Edwards up and over his 3-point prop for tomorrow, though. I do think it's a really good look. You just need him out there, especially without Julius Randle. I think his usage is going to be higher. All right, last game that we have on the board is the Milwaukee Bucks in the Oklahoma City Thunder. So this line actually opened 8.5. I think it was 8.5. I think it might even be 7. Might have been 7.5. But regardless, this line opened 8.5, 7. The Bucks will be on the second leg of a back-to-back. They probably gonna submit their injury report super late. Not sure when it'll actually be submitted. We'll see what that ends up looking like. The Thunder will be at the crib. I like this spot for the Thunder tomorrow. This is actually my favorite spread bet for tomorrow. And maybe I'm off, but we'll see how it goes. Let's get into the breakdown. So This is 8.5 right now on like 2 sports books as the time of recording, but it's 9 on a lot of other books. I think it continues to move in that direction. Terrible spot for the Bucks here tomorrow. So I mentioned the Bucks could, potentially, rest some players. Bobby Portis didn't play in today's game. He's missed like 4 or 5 games in a row. And then on the Oklahoma City Thunder side of things, Casey Wallace is questionable. Jalen Williams is also questionable. Jalen Williams did not play in that last game. So the first thing that stands out here is you got the Cup revenge, right? The Oklahoma City Thunder got smoked by this Milwaukee Bucks team in the NBA Cup. So I'm pretty sure they'll come fired up and motivated for that, for that reason. We saw them lose to the Cleveland Cavaliers in Cleveland. They come back, they absolutely steamrolled the Cleveland Cavaliers when they came into their building. And I think the Bucks still can turn it. I think the Thunder can still turn it on like that as well. This season in revenge games, they play 5 of them. They're 4-1 straight up, 3-2 against the number in revenge games. OKC is also 15-7-1 against the spread as a home favorite this season. And I think they're in a really good spot. The other thing I don't like for the Bucks here is the travel situation. On top of the defensive rating, I mean, it's a lot of things that I like for the Bucks. They're 25th defensive rated team last 5 games. And that's against the 9th easiest schedule. Right now, as I'm watching this, they're actually losing to the Memphis Grizzlies by 5 with about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But 25th defensive rated team last 5 games. OKC is actually the number 1 defensive rated team at home, 105.3 defensive rating. And they're number 1 also in efficiency differential at home. Which means that they win by the biggest margin at home. A plus 14.1 is what they typically win by at home. We see when they turn it on. Like they just beat the Sacramento Kings by like 40 in their last game at home. No travel at all. When I look at the Bucks on the second leg of back-to-backs, especially if they have to travel, they're 3-0 to the under. When they have to travel on the second leg of a back-to-back, whether that's traveling from home to road or road to home, they've stayed under their team total in all 3 games. They happen against the Knicks, the Hawks, and the Wizards. But didn't get up and over their team total in any of those. You look at the trends of teams playing at least, because this is the other situational spot for the Bucks. Bucks been traveling all over the place. They play 4 straight road games. They come home for 1 home game, and then they got to fly all the way back out to OKC with no rest in between. That is not, and I say all the way out like it's a super far travel, but it's still no rest. Going to get in super late. This game going to go off tonight around 11, 15, 12 o'clock. It's by the time you do media. By the time they get there, it's going to be super late is my point. I think they're going to resting a couple people, a couple players as well, but we'll see how that goes. You look at that trend of teams playing at least 3 straight road games, coming home for 1 game, and then heading back on the road like the Bucks gonna have to do tomorrow. They stayed under their team total. It's only happened about 9-10 times this season, and they stayed under their team total in 5 of their 6 games. So I do think it's a spot where the Bucks run out of gas. I mentioned OKC's defense. It hasn't been that great, not as great as it typically was. It's not up to their standards. But with Milwaukee set to travel up, to OKC, I think this OKC is at the crib resting. I think that they end up getting a nice win tomorrow, double-digit win tomorrow versus the Milwaukee Bucks coming in town with revenge here. We saw what they did against Sacramento, and I think they could do the same thing against this Milwaukee team. The thing Milwaukee has in common with the Bucks, and this is the last point I'll make, the thing that Milwaukee has in common with the Bucks is neither team is playing defense. In the Bucks, defense for whatever reason on the road is night and day what we see at home. At home, they got the 6th best defense, 6th best defensive rated team on the Bucks at home. On the road, 25th defense, and that's what it's been the last 5 games as well. So I like OKC minus the 8.5. I already played it. It's not a super big play because the injury report is absolutely bananas, but I will take them in the revenge spot with the travel situation. I think this sets up for the best situational spot for tomorrow on the board. I'm also looking at the Bucks team total under. The number is 112.5. It's not out yet, but it should come out about 112.5 with this total being 233.5. So that's actually my favorite look. My favorite 2 looks on the board for tomorrow is this Bucks team total under 112.5, and then OKC minus the 8.5. I already played that as well. Let's see. So the Bucks, they only average 106 points as road dogs this season, and they've gone over their total twice in 10 road games as a road dog this season. So Those are the spots those are the things that I like the most for tomorrow, man. I'll get into a quick recap. I know I didn't go through the whole slate, but I tried to give you guys everything that I, was able to get through. It's a couple other things that I'll be looking at, probably send out some plays to the members tomorrow. If I pull the trigger on everything, I think it's 10 games altogether, but quick recap is here. If I'm playing Washington and Charlotte, is definitely under 217. No play for me in the Atlanta-Detroit game, but I'll lean Detroit minus the 3.5, even though they typically don't cover as a home favorite. I just think Atlanta's cooked right now. But if Detroit doesn't defend the 3-point line, it's a chance that Atlanta could win that game too, because I watched Detroit struggle to defend the 3-point line against Chicago. And if Atlanta gets hot, anything can happen when teams get hot from the 3-point line. The Anthony Edwards up and over his 3-point prop, I haven't locked that one in yet, but I will most likely be on Ant. I love the spot for him against the Sacramento team in their last road game. Probably still trying to process the De'Aaron Fox trade. And then OKC minus the 8.5, I locked it in. Have not played the team total over, but that's what I'm looking towards as well for tomorrow, man. So that's the quick breakdown of 4 or 5 games for tomorrow. Also got to look in Pelicans and Denver, but definitely a strong lean towards the Pelicans. Not laying points with Denver. First game back home after a 5-game road trip. Phoenix should be in a bounce back spot. They're minus 4.5 in Portland after losing to Portland in the first game. OKC and Golden State, I have no idea what to do with that game, but that's another one on the board. I will be live with Cal tomorrow at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And like I said, if you want access to all my plays, just use the link in the description. You can use it to sign up. As for Jackson likes Detroit for tomorrow as well. There is a 50-cent discount code in the description of the video. Outlier 7-day free trial as well. In the description of the video, the link is there. Moneyball at 50% off using code ChrisBeCappinn, 2 P's, 2 N's. And OzJam, CBC will get you 20% off your first month over there. So, again, man, enjoy your Monday. Enjoy the hoops. I'll catch you guys in the next one, man. I'm out.